Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Atpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyan Ravitam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our text?
We're on number 24 on page 12.
Page 12, verse 24. Who wants to chant this evening? I can chant. Thank you.
Vishuddho sisanam tattam videhastvana videho stvana jokyayah janami hana janami ityatmanam manyase katham. You are pure, homogeneous reality, disembodied, unborn, and immutable. Why do you think of yourself as I know it here, or as I do not know?
Yes. So again, the purpose of this text, to review, is to remove the last vestiges of that personal sense of self. So we sublimate all other ego identities into the yogi. In Gita, Krishna says, by all means, be a yogi. Or Shankara would say, be a mumukshu, a seeker after liberation. But as we hold on to that, understand that's still an ego state. Do I know? Don't I know? Do I need to control my mind? Do I not need to control my mind? Is there something to be achieved or not something to be achieved? Have I attained it yet? Have I not attained it yet? Maybe I'm fooling myself. Am I making all this stuff up? How could it happen to me? All these doubts and considerations. Listen very carefully. You're not going to get them resolved. What you need to do is drop the doubter. Now, this practice is only efficacious if first and foremost you have something real with which to work. Meaning, at least here in class, in the quietude of your own meditation, You've had these moments when your mind has become very still. The attention is introverted. And you have clear understanding. Oh, I'm not a person. I am Brahman. Asangoham, 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 punah, punah. Nila was chanting that as they came in. Remember, at the point of knowledge, the mind doesn't say, oh, I am realized now. I think I've got it. I am superior to others now. The problem is the scriptures keep talking about how wonderful the Jivan Mukta is. And but the subjective experience of the Jivan Mukta is not Aham Mahatma, but Aham Brahmasmi. Don't settle for being a saint. Instead, be much better, much less work. Let the equipment do as it will. And again, not just glimpses of your self-nature, but to some degree, you've started the process of retiring into the self. If we take up this practice too soon, self-realization isn't real. Doesn't matter what the equipment's doing. I'm always the witness. Now it's the truth. But one can end up rationalizing one's suffering. Oh, I've had a miserable day and I hate everybody. Well, that's not real. You're kind of whistling in the dark at it all. But if the mind is stabilized, there is nothing more to do. I'm thinking clearly about a couple of you who are pretty rooted in this knowledge. You've gone off on Vipassana retreats, which I absolutely support. And then when they come back, I say, do you know more self now? No, Jim. See it or you don't. Any thoughts on this? But for many of us, such is the power of Maya. Even after realization of the truth, ignorance returns and the mind gets covered, and I never see it happen. All of a sudden, I'm a person again, going from point A to point B. All right, next verse.
तत्त्वमस्यादिवाक्येन स्वात्मा हि प्रतिपादितः नेति नेति श्रुतिर्ब्रूयात् अनृतं पाञ्च भौतिकम्. By such sentences as that thou art, your own self is affirmed, of that which is untrue and composed of the five elements. The Shruti says, not this, not this.
So, scripture, first of all, this is footnoting. Most of our scriptures, they'll put forward philosophical notions and practices, and then they'll say, and the scripture says, blah. They're footnoted. Why? What in Hinduism, what is our ultimate authority? For Hindus, for Indians, it's Shruti. Those of us who come from the West, okay, I see them, but I'm not sure I'm going to believe them any more than anything else. Doesn't matter. From the standpoint of practice, what the Tattva is saying here is we can divide modes of meditation into two fundamental practices. I'm going to take them in the reverse order of the shloka. First is neti neti, na iti, na iti, the path of negation. Now, we never say just neti, and we never say neti, neti, neti. We always say neti, neti. Why? The two things we are to negate is our personal equipment and the phenomenal world. All this is very clearly put forth in Mandukya Upanishad. We'll go through it briefly. So we have macrocosm, God. Microcosm, me. What am I to negate? I have a physical body, the meat lump, the stula sharira. God has a physical body, the jagat, or as we say in Mandukya, the Vishwa. One who sees it is Vishwa Nara, Vaishwanara, the person who sees the waking state, universal waker. You and I have a subtle body, world of thoughts and feelings. God has a subtle body. It's called Hiranya Garbha, the total mind, sum total of all the feelings that have ever been thought and felt and ever could be, the potentiality for it all. You and I have a causal body, karana sharira, meaning my individual bundle of vasanas, the unconscious impressions that dictate and order my life. The macrocosm has a causal body, which we term Ishvara. Which the translate Ishvara as the Lord. But it comes from ichati, which means to wish or to will or to intend. Then, having negated the gross, the subtle, and the causal, what is left? Witnessing consciousness, And when I have negated the illusory phenomenal world and the illusory total mind, and even the illusory causes of it all, what is left? It's the ground of being. Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is consciousness. So this is the path of negation, neti neti. Then it takes us into the path of affirmation or assertion. Tat Twamasi, you are that. So going back to our paradigm that we have in Mandukya, that witnessing consciousness, which is beyond the body, beyond the subtle body, beyond the vasanas, beyond my ignorance, and that ground of being, which is the substratum of the whole creation, they are the same thing. You are that. You're not a person. You're not your body. A phenomenal world comes about like a very long and vivid dream. The thing that's here is consciousness. Any thoughts on this? But my mind gets covered by ignorance. I never see it happen. It's just like you never experienced the beginning of a dream. When you're dreaming, the dream projects an unexamined logical cause and effect. If you dream you're on top of a mountain, you never think, how did I get there? Or if you do think, how did I get there? You never doubt that you're there. You assume cause and effect. So first comes the avarana shakti, the veiling. I forget that I'm Brahman. Then the vikshepa shakti. I'm Jim. I think I'm a person. And I think the world of name and form is separate from me. Joy giving and misery producing, and it's serious business to get some happiness. Struggle, 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 struggle. Kartavya. Ego always says, resolve the struggle of ego. More, better, different. I'll be happy with. Yoga says, drop it. Remember who you are. And we need to do it over and over and over until we have sthita, continuous, steady knowledge. Now, Shankara uses a wonderful image. In South India, when the women come down to the tank in the morning, the tank is all covered by algae, by moss. And they leave it there because it eats the bacteria, it keeps you from getting sick. The ladies put their jars down and then they splash the water away so that it's clear. They dip the jars in to get the potable water. But then as they're walking back to the house or the village, the algae comes back and covers the tank. So you and I, at one stage of our sadhana, have moments of knowledge. But because of vasana, which is the algae, we forget. And it needs to be conscientiously through steady and continuous identification with the self. Don't settle for just a glimpse. Now, what do I mean by that? What keeps the mind returning? It's always the same. Attachment and identification. You can't see the rope if you're smooching the snake. So the price tag for steady wisdom is to really seriously give up our attachments to the world. For some of us, it can take a long time. Some of these attachments are very tenacious. Next verse.
Atmanyevatmana sarvam tvaya purnam nirantaram dhyata dhyanam nate chittam nirlajjam dhyayate katham. As the self is filled by the self, so is all filled continuously by you. There is no meditator or meditation. Why does your mind meditate shamelessly?
Yes. So by meditation here, meaning I sit down, I choose to have a practice, I have an object of meditation, even if it's self-inquiry or endeavoring to be in some mind state to grip the mind. And again, it's a good start. We just finished Tripura Rahasyam. And in the beginning, remember the story of Hemaleka and Hemachuda. Hemachuda starts by endeavoring with discipline to control his mind. And Hemaleka says, that's a very good beginning. And everyone needs to go through this stage. Why? Because the mind is like an indulgent 2-year-old. Needs discipline. But at the higher levels of practice, our practice is to give up all control. Now, the seeker, the sadhak, is seen to be doing spiritual practices so that he may purify his mind and realize the self. The man of wisdom, the Siddha, may also be seen to be doing spiritual practices. Wait a minute, I thought the Tatra is saying, no, give all that stuff up. Why would he do it? Because it's the highest form of worldly pleasure. because he enjoys it. It does not add to his knowledge of self. And always be clear. All worldly pleasures, including meditative mind states, are inherently temporary. So these meditative states, these post-enlightenment samadhis, first of all, if you're struggling to get them, you're not even a jnana yet. You're still making efforts. But if the cushion calls to you can't help yourself. You just got to do it. When these things happen. Next verse.
Shivam na janami katham. Shivam na janami katham vadami. Shivam na janami katham bhajami. Aham Shivaschet Paramartha Tattvam Samasvarupam Gaganopamam Cha. I do not know the Supreme. How shall I speak of him? I do not know the Supreme. How shall I worship him? If I am the Supreme One, who is the highest truth, who is the homogeneous being and like unto space, how then shall I speak of him and worship him?
Yes. So in Mandukya again, we have these words of description of the self through the language of negation. And one of my favorites is Avyapadesha. Upadesha means to teach or to talk about something. Upadesha means, how can you talk about it? I call it untalkable. Achintya, not thinkable. In terms of worship, there's nothing out there in the world of name and form. It's all shunyata. Boy. Highest form of bhakti is Atmarabhava. Narada Bhakti Sutra calls it Parama Prema, the supreme love of the infinite, reveling in the self. Next point.
Naham tattvam samam tattvam kalpana hetu varjitam grahya grahaka nirmuktam swasam vedyam katham bhavet. The principle of ego is not the truth, which is homogeneous, which is free from the cause or superimposition and distinctions of perceived and perceiver. How can the ego be that which is aware of itself?
Yes. So here is a secret. Many people think that they want to kill the ego or destroy the ego or get rid of the ego. That is like saying, it'll all be better when I am rid of my hand, when I'm rid of my nose. Ego is a function in the subtlest part of the intellect. Karta, the sense of doer, the sense of agency. Its function is to coordinate through memory, activity of the body, sense perception, feeling, and thought, such that I, Jim, got up today. I, Jim, took the BART into the city. I, Jim, went shopping for a wedding present for my niece. I, Jim, had lunch with my friend Susan. I came home, etc. That mechanism that coordinates it all, makes it appear like it's all happening to one entity, is the karta, the doer, ahankriti, ego sense. Thing to understand is it's an object of awareness. Thing to understand is that it's not you. It's part of just the programming of the robot. Who are you? Still the mind. Look within and you tell me who you are. I say you are empty, witnessing consciousness. There's no person. You see ego thicken and thin. You see it disappear at night in deep sleep or the deepest meditation. You see it get very thin when you're engaged intently in something like dance or music or making love. And then when you become paranoid and self-absorbed, you feel it get really thick. It's not you because you observe it. Oh, Jim, I got so identified this week. Oh, did you see the process of identification take place? Yes. Then you were not identified. You were the witness of the stupid mind. So ego is not troublesome to the man of wisdom. Because he knows it's not himself. It's not thus. When the mind is deeply absorbed, since it's very, very thin. Now, there are schools of Buddhism where they refer to the equipment in the third person. This one is going to the store this afternoon. This one is going to take a bath. This one is going to study scripture. And if you look at some of the early writings, I think we have an early letter of Ramana Maharshi, who had the same kind of syntax when he was writing his family, saying he's not going to come back. The one known as blah, 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 spoke of himself in the third person. My viewpoint, you don't have to talk funny. You just have to know the truth. The example I like to give, have you seen a sunset? No, you've never seen a sunset. You've seen an earth spin, and everybody knows that. We just call it a sunset. The sun does not set. The earth rotates. Oh, the bright blue sky, it was beautiful today. No, the sky is not blue. It's an optical illusion. There's so many things. So don't annoy your friends by taking up funny language. It's not necessary. You can if you wish. It is not necessary. Your understanding is what's important. I am not the ego sense. And when I no longer have that part of the ego which is attributing to the self the qualities of the not-self, when the ego is in ignorance, when the mind is in ignorance, then the ego is always trying to defend, protect, and secure itself. All that goes away. It's not the same. It's a very subtle point. If you want to read more fully on this, study it, I point you to Vivekachudamani, the discussion of the Vijnana Maya Kosha, where he spends quite a bit of time talking about this. Any thoughts? Next verse.
Anantarupam nahi vastu kinchit tattvasvarupam nahi vastu kinchit atmaikarupam paramarthatattvam nahimsako vapi na chapyahimsa. There is no substance whatever which is by nature unlimited. There is no substance whatever which is of the nature of reality. The very self is the supreme truth. There is neither injury or non-injury in it.
So, another way of saying every name and form is insubstantial. Pretty to look at, but has no substance in and of itself. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real and the phenomenal world is illusory. Vaitatya, false. Pratibimba, like the reflection in the mirror. What appears as the world of name and form is only the play of consciousness. reality, you never change, you never move. And the movie never touches the theater screen of consciousness. Sarvamaya, Sarvamaya. All is Maya. All. Next verse.
Vishuddhosi samam tattvam videham ajam avyayam vibhramam kathamat parthe vibhrantoham katham punah. You are the homogeneous reality. You are pure, bodiless, birthless, and imperishable. Why then do you have any delusion about the self? Again, why am I myself deluded?
So, once you've had a taste, you know this to be true. Many of us are plagued by a terrible demon. I made this demon up. I created him. And his name is Yavat. Yeah, but what about my family? Yeah, but what about my job? Yeah, but what about politics? But yeah, but what about my health? But yeah, but that's really real, Jim. Slay the demon Yavat. Vanquish him. Not only do we say asangoham, 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 sannyasam, 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 go and give it all. Then next one.
Ghate bhinne ghatakash sulinam vedavarjitam shivena manasa shuddho veda pratibhati me. When the pot is broken and the space within it is absorbed in the infinite space and becomes undifferentiated. When the mind becomes pure, we do not perceive any difference between the mind and the Supreme Being.
I love one of my favorite images. So I have the mug here. I have iced coffee in it tonight. So we have room space, and inside we have cup space. Now I'm going to do a magic trick. Pay very close attention. Did I move cup space? Move the cup. Wait, I gotta get back in the cup. Is that what the space does? No. And if the cup were to break, what happens to the space? I'm going to push back a bit on the verse. No, the pot space doesn't merge with infinite space. nothing happens. The pot is in space. To say there is space inside the pot is just a trick of language. The pot is broken. Nothing happens. There's not merging going on. So also, look to your direct experience. When you were a child, you had the child's body. Did you get all squished inside that little body? You see pictures of yourself as a 2-year-old. Where is that body? Gone. You grew up, a young person, going through adolescence. Where did that body go? Gone. Many of you are young men now. We don't have any women tonight, do we?
Yes,
So.
I'm here.
Is that Shveta?
No, Susali.
Susali, Hariom. I didn't.
Hariom too. Hariom.
Okay, well, I will use more gender inclusive language. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
But some of us, are young men and women. And some of us are now long in the tooth. But nothing has ever happened to you. You are like the space in the cup. And I tell you, when the body dies, it will be just like when the cup gets broken. Nothing changes you. One of the stories in Yoga Vasishtha, once upon a time, there was a fellow, and he was very, very weird. And he decided he needed to protect space. So he builds a house to protect space. And in time, of course, the house falls down. He does not mourn the loss of the house. He grieves the loss of space. So then he digs a hole to protect the space. And in time, the hole fills up. He's so upset, not because the hole filled up, but because space was harmed. So then he finds a cave where he can have space. And in time, the cave caves in, and he mourns the loss of space. Space doesn't go anywhere, and it need not be protected. Likewise, you go nowhere. You do not change. You do not need to be protected. Look to your direct experience. You have always been you. The body, mind, intellect goes through its changes, and it always has, and it's always temporary. One of the powerful things that Maya tries to convince us, I'm in a painful mind state, and ignorance says it's always going to be this way. This is the value of a long meditation retreat. One of the things you see is mind states don't last. Nothing lasts in the world of form. Don't worry. But you are a changeless, eternal reality. Satchidananda Rupa. I am of the form of existence, consciousness of this. Aham Evaham. I am that I am. Avyayaha. Next verse.
न घटो न घटाकाशो न जीवो जीव विग्रहः केवलं ब्रह्म संविद्धि वेद्य वेदकवर्जितं. There is no pot, there is no pot's interior space. Neither is there an individual soul, nor the form of an individual soul. Know the absolute Brahman, devoid of noble and knower.
Yes. So now what we need to do is talk about the cup space. And this cup space is, what was you say? That's 2 inches, 2.5 inches. That's the size of cup space. And it's maybe 4 inches deep. We need to be very clear about the nature of cup space, because we've got to be very clear about who and what cup space is. I am this. I am that. I do this. I didn't do that. I'm of this size, this shape, this quality, this caste, this form. There's no such real thing as cup space. Cup in space. But it doesn't move, change, alter space anyway. So there's no real being called the jiva. This distinction between the jivatman and paramatman, the individual self and the supreme self, it's like saying cup space and room space. No, your body, mind, intellect is in the self. In that vijnana maya kosha is this stupid little thing called an ego. But none of it is an entity, a conscious being. You are the one alone conscious being. Whatever happens to pots and cups and bowls never touches space. Why do I worry over this body or even this world? Any thoughts on this? Next.
Sarvatra sarvada sarvam atmanam satatam dhruvam sarvam shunyam cha tanmam vidhina samshayah. No need to be that self who is everything and everywhere at all times, who is eternal, steady, the all, the non-existent, and the existent. Have no doubt.
So, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the ignorance, I am witnessing consciousness. What is this world? It too is consciousness appearing as name and form. If in your meditation you thin the mind with your eyes wide open, you'll find the universe starts to get thinner and thinner. Because it's nothing real. Inside, outside. All is nothing but Brahma. Stay shitala, stay cool. Next one.
Vedana lokana surana yajna varnashramo naiva kulam na jatihi adhuma margo na chatiti margo brahmaika rupam paramartha tattvam. There are no Vedas, no worlds, no gods, no sacrifices. There is certainly no caste, no stage in life, no family, no birth. There is neither the path of smoke nor the path of light. There is only the highest truth, homogeneous Brahman.
So all these things that are put forward in the scriptures, in the Vedas, which seem to contradict what we have in the Upanishads. How do we reconcile the apparent contradiction? And let's talk about each one of these things and what they mean. Can you go through the list for me one at a time?
No Vedas.
So the Vedas, those are the most sacred things we have. Well, actually, the Vedas are not real. If you think of the Vedas as words, Vedanta, the end of the Vedas, is you. That's right. Next idea.
No words.
Yes. All the mantras, all the secret spells, things like that, affirmations. 3 is mine. Next one.
No gods.
Wait a minute. Meaning the forms that we traditionally worship. The form of Krishna, the form of Rama, the form of Shiva, the form of Ganesh, the form of Jesus, the form of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Next idea.
No sacrifices.
Oh, so if you come from a Brahmin caste, you are supposed to do yajna. It is because of your sacrifices. That's what keeps the world going. You have a responsibility to do. Oh, what about communion? What about confession? What about the Torah? Next idea.
No caste.
Kind of down on those people who I am just a little bit superior, or maybe a lot superior. Not next idea.
No stage in life.
So you're not a brahmacharya student, you're not a grahasta householder, you're not a vanaprastha, semi-retirement. You're not the sannyasi. None of that is real. Next idea.
No family.
Last weekend when I was listening to this documentary on Ramana Maharshi, they were talking about when he was there in Tiruvannamalai, and his mother finally found him. She comes and she's in tears, begging him to come back. It's just completely embarrassing. Oh, what about love, Jim? It's not real. If you think of real love as possession and attachment, if you think of love as your experience of the divine, that's different. Next one.
No birth.
Yes. Nobody's born. Nobody dies. Only forms come and go. They are dreamlike. They are not real. Next one.
Neither the path of smoke nor the path of light.
So this is talked about both in the Vedas, but it's also talked about in Gita. The path of smoke is the second half of the year, and if you die during that second half of that fortnight, then you go to the ancestors and are reborn. If you die in the first half of the year, the path of light, then you go to Brahmaloka and you're released at the end of the age. Not real. Swamiji died in August, the second half. The cup is broken. What is the disposition of the space in the cup? Oh, this space is doomed to be reborn in the pot. nothing touches. Next idea.
There is only the highest truth, the homogeneous Brahman.
Only Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. I is Brahman. That alone is real. We know Brahman differently than everything else. How do you know you are you? You are self-evident. Everything else is illumined in a subject-object relationship, not yourself. And that is real, and that's eternal. You have always had it. It never moves, it never alters, it doesn't rise, it doesn't fall. Don't believe me? Look. Okay, we'll end here tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Shishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Anand.
Thank you, Jim.